It all started on a Friday, when Jorge Eliezer Gaitan, the electrifying leader of Colombia's dispossessed, stepped into the beating heart of Bogotá and into history. By 1948, Gaitan was more than a politician. He was a living symbol of hope for the urban poor and rural migrants who surged into Colombia's cities. He spoke with the cadence of the tram conductor and the urgency of a judge who had seen injustice up close. Years of political polarization had left the country brittle. An unpopular conservative government, bitter battles over land and labor, and a populace hungry for reform. Gaitan's mass rallies promised to reorder a system that had long enriched a few and crushed many. The morning of April 9th carried the ordinary rhythms of the capital and the extraordinary electricity that followed Gaitan wherever he went. That afternoon, as he left his office en route to a meeting, a shot rang out. Gaitan collapsed. A young man, Juan Roa Sierra, was seized by the crowd and lynched within minutes. The official account that followed one lone gunman acting without motive was simple, but the city's reaction was anything but. Within hours, Bogotá detonated. The Bogotazo, an eruption of looting, arson, and fury, spread like fire through wooden tenements and colonial plazas. Public buildings, newspapers sympathetic to the establishment, and the very arteries of the capital were burned or battered. Official tallies of the dead vary widely. Historians estimate casualties from the riots in the hundreds, and the social convulsion seeded a decade of rural and urban violence that would claim hundreds of thousands of lives in the years known as La Violencia. Why had the bullet found Gaitan? The question devoured Colombia. The immediate facts were brutal and sparse. A charismatic leader gunned down in broad daylight, a suspect quickly killed by enraged citizens, and a government that moved with alarming slowness to restore order. The absence of a rigorous investigation, evidence mishandled, witnesses scattered, key doors left unlocked, created fertile ground for conspiracy. Multiple lines of suspicion grew. Many of Gaitan's supporters pointed to domestic enemies, conservative elites threatened by his land and labor reforms, elements within the military and police who feared the breakdown of their privileges, and political rivals who saw in Gaitan a man who could remake Colombia's political map. In the charged atmosphere of 1948, such motives made sense. Gaitan's campaigns had openly challenged the oligarchy and called for prosecutions of entrenched power. Other theories reached beyond Colombia's borders. The late 1940s were the opening years of the Cold War, and the United States and its allies watched radical populisms with suspicion. Gaitan's nationalist and redistributive rhetoric alarmed some international observers. Rumors that foreign actors, diplomats, intelligence operatives, or corporate interests might have preferred a different Colombian trajectory proliferated. However, while circumstantial evidence fed these ideas, conclusive proof of direct foreign orchestration has never emerged. A third, darker hypothesis treated Juan Roa Sierra as either a manipulated pawn or a lone, troubled figure made into an instrument. Roa's motives were opaque. He had a history of instability, and some who saw him at the scene described him as desperate and bewildered. Whether he acted alone, was paid, or was used by conspirators has remained contested. The rapid lynching and the chaotic handling of evidence meant the most crucial witness was silenced before the courts could interrogate him. What is indisputable is the consequence. The assassination did not simply remove a leader. It detonated a mass grievance. The immediate collapse of public order exposed the fragility of Colombian institutions and the depth of popular rage. Over the following decade, reprisals, guerrilla formations, and paramilitary violence fed a cycle that reshaped the nation. Historians still sift through fragments, newspapers, testimonies, police reports, and the ruins of a city that burned. They find a portrait of a country where concentrated wealth and weak institutions made political assassination a plausible turning point, and where the failure of transparent justice turned questions into myths. The conspiracy, if there was one, was as much about what the country allowed to happen in the wake of the crime as it was about who pulled the trigger. In the end, the assassination of Jorge Eliezer Gaitan became both a tragedy and a warning. It showed how a single act of violence in a moment of polarized politics can unloose forces that reverberate for generations. The Bogotazo remains a landmark in Latin American history.